You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Kieran, the Jags are your local NFL team. You've had a good look at them now over the last couple of seasons, and you've seen the Liam Coen leap in year one when he took over as head coach. From unpromising beginnings, he led them to a 13-4 season and seemed to find the mojo with Trevor Lawrence. They get to the playoffs and they're unlucky to lose to the Bills in a game that really could have gone either way. A lot of promise heading into this season, and probably the only thing that didn't really work for them, and we'll see how that goes, was the whole Travis Hunter thing.
Yeah, it's been a strange kind of off season in Jacksonville, where the fact that a team that finished 13-4 and should be getting all the plaudits and the congratulations, and then everything just kind of came to a halt in March. A lot of kind of quiet, a lot of inactivity from the Jaguars in free agency. Kind of stood pat, didn't do a huge amount. We're pretty quiet in the draft, obviously, with not having another high pick. And it's kind of left a vacuum of question marks now in Jacksonville about were they should they have gone after the free agent market? Should they have been a bit more active? Do they need to pad it up a little bit? And then it kind of goes. The other question goes to will you let Devin Lloyd go and Travis Etienne? So what's the outcome now? So it's been a strange kind of offseason, because you've kind of factions now who are arguing, the Jags are fine. They're standing pat. The roster is perfect. We've got Odinsky and Campanelli. They've got everything under control. And then the flip side, you look at the running game. Travis Etienne is not back there, and you have Bashal Tutin and Chris Rodriguez, two not exactly heralded running backs. And that's kind of been the story the last couple of months. You various kind of outlets, whether it be, Pete Prisco or even, friends of the pod, the Duval Dive with Travis Holmes and Kyle Nash. And they're very much of the opinion that, this is a quality roster still. You still have Liam Coen and Gladstone who are going to continue to work their magic. Odinsky and Campanelli, who, let's be honest, are probably being primed for head coaching positions in the not too distant future. So it's a really big year for Jacksonville. I'm a little surprised personally they didn't make more of a splash and kind of build on the year they had, because it was almost like a classic Jaguars end to a promising season. They push so hard. Lawrence goes back to his old ways of throwing interceptions, and then the decisive play of the game is a pick by Cole Bishop, and that's it. It was I was there at the game. There was a huge amount of expectation at the start. And then that deflating, feeling, and when the season's over and there's no more football till, August or September. So I don't want to say it's an opportunity missed for the Jags, because Lord knows they've been terrible for a long, long time. And the big challenge for the Jags now is, can they build on this 13-4, follow it up with another double-digit season? It can't go back to what it's been the last 30 years for the Jags. You go back to the early Tom Coughlin years in the late 90s when they had, Mark Brunell. That was a quality team. Jimmy Smith out there too. And then it was 5, 6, 7 years of wasteland. There hasn't been much since 2017 with Blake Bortles when they got to the playoffs. So the problem with the Jags has been, can they build on the consistency? And that right now you see what Gladstone's doing. He's putting all the pieces in place that he thinks is going to be enough for them to continue with what they've had over this past season. You've got to like Liam Coen and what he did this season. You've got to like the spice that's going to be added now with Salah in the same division. Those two, there's no love lost between those two. And you look at what Gladstone's doing, very quiet, very kind of cerebral kind of GM who doesn't say a lot. He's kind of the antithesis of a lot of GMs who like to put themselves out first and foremost and make bold kind of predictions. He's just stays in the background, just working his magic. Huge opportunity for the Jags to take a leap forward. they've got a reputation to not just to uphold but to enhance in the league. That whole thing last year with Peyton about the small market mentality. They want to break that. They want to kind of show the rest of the league that they're one of the worthy 32 teams in there, and they can hold their own with anybody on any given day. They've got to just build on those big wins last year. You remember the Monday night game against the Chiefs, the big win they had against the 49ers. But the big challenge for them is the playoffs. Can they just replicate any of those big season-long games into the playoffs? And that's really, a wild card, a wild card game or even a wild card win is not going to be enough for this fan base. They've got to just put a foot or put a stamp on the division and even the conference and show people that they're for real. I am a little bit concerned in the fact that the run game is a little bit deficient from last year. The O-line is still not ideal. It's not probably the strongest. It's probably middle of the table, if not, the 15th to 20th ranked in the league. So I have a couple of questions and worries about that, but you have to think the way that they battled with the Texans last year, you've got to be really looking forward to that kind of ding dong battle coming up in 26. And you got to think that they're going to just be trading blows for the rest of the season. I think it's going to be a difficult season. I think there's going to be some problems with Lawrence. I think he's going to have that kind of fumble issue again, but they've got to hope that doesn't come in the playoffs. The number one rushing D in the league, that's going to be the calling card for this team. They've got to just lock that down again. And like I said at the start, in reality, you're looking at two coordinators, Zadinsky and Campanelli, who will probably come 27 be looking at moving along to a head coaching gig somewhere. So it's a big year for the Jags. I really hope they can just build that momentum and keep things roaring in Duval.
Craig, people slightly slept on, I feel, the Jags draft class this year because they didn't have that first round pick, having traded up to take Travis Hunter in last year's draft or the previous year's draft, and they didn't have that first round pick. So you kind of tended to forget that they did have 4 picks in the top 100. So they should have an influx of talent coming into the building here. It'll be interesting to see how they manage to integrate that into what they have. I feel like we haven't talked about that an awful lot in the off season here.
No, and I think that's because of the fact that they generally kept a roster together that had obviously performed very well. So it was all about supplementation than it was overhaul. Obviously, Kieran's already mentioned Travis Etienne and Devin Bush going, who were 2 massive contributors, especially Bush. I don't think a lot of people really gave him the flowers that he deserved last year. He was an absolute outstanding player, a linebacker, probably the best in the league, and really showed that. And that's going to be a big hole. They haven't really addressed that massively, especially in the draft. There, they didn't pick up a linebacker at all, or actually they did, but right at the back end of round 7 there, where they picked up Parker Hughes. So he's not going to be a day one slot in for Bush there. But they did pick up some interesting people. Pregnon, the guard, they picked up in round 3, which was a really nice pickup. The defensive tackle Albert Regis from Texas A&M, and then weirdly second round they went for a tight end, and I'm not sure if that was like the area that they needed. Right there.
They took 2 tight ends because they took a tight end in the 5th round as well.
Yeah, exactly. They took Tanner Kozoil from Houston. So, yeah, bit of an odd pickup that round 2 one. I think a lot of people are kind of trying to skew it a little bit and saying that, well, technically Travis Hunter is a free hit because he didn't really do a lot last year. They didn't see the best of him. He's going to come back hopefully healthy as a two-way player, depending on how they kind of fit him into that offense, because they are going to have to replace obviously De'Ami Brown, the wide receiver who left. He went to the Commanders, so they are a wide receiver light now. So you can see him maybe appearing more on offense than he does on defense, but he's still a relative unknown, Travis Hunter, because we didn't really see the best of him. We saw the glimpses. We saw that breakout game. I saw it firsthand in London, where he really sort of shone, and then obviously exited the game a bit later during that one, and we didn't really see him again for the rest of the season. So that's going to be a big part there. But you're right, it was like because they kept so much of the team together, it's hard to see where these draft players are going to fit on the depth chart outside of the backup or the backup to the backup, which is why I called it that sort of supplemental draft to try and push the team forward into the coming years, as opposed to anything that's really going to make an impact here and now. But if it does go that way, then they've proved us all wrong, haven't they?
Well, I was just going to say, when you mentioned the phrase free hit in terms of Travis Hunter, which I know you were saying was their words, not yours. I'm not putting them into your mouth. But the pick that would have fallen to Jacksonville was KC Concepcion, was used on KC Concepcion by the Cleveland Browns. So it's not a free hit. It's the opportunity cost of drafting KC Concepcion plus whoever you might have drafted if you hadn't taken Travis Hunter. So he does have quite a lot to live up to still if he's going to make that worth the Jaguars' while. Brian, you wanted to make a point on both Liam Coen and on the GM Gladstone.
Yeah, even with the guys, like, it's two various kind of conversations to be had. Like, Kieran recognised a great season and argues the fact that they've gone aggressive in free agent to kind of push on for the season which they had. Craig out kind of, I suppose, alludes to kind of subtle changes. But how many GMs have we seen over the years kind of where they misunderstand where their team is because they've had a really strong season and they go gangbusters in free agency, and then they're very quickly back in the mire after 2 or 3 years, and they're kind of back rebuilding again. And inevitably, it's not that GM that's rebuilding. And with Coen, I think for me, the X factor last year we saw after time after time in games where you see the locker room celebrations where they won games in Vegas and Arizona, and they weren't really great wins, but they were kind of compelling in the sense of they're building a kind of a strong unity. And he's talking about it's only the Jags, sure, no one gives us any respect here, and he kind of built up that kind of trust within the team. And I think they're kind of buying into him being able to bring that kind of razzmatazz back to the team in year 2. But I think Gladstone is a very young GM, and young GMs, like, he wants to be there for the long haul, and he wants to be in the league for the long haul. So I think if he was to go real heavy early on after 1 year and things don't go according to plan, I think to Craig's point, I think they didn't necessarily have to do a lot. That was a really difficult loss to the Bills, but we've seen the Jags in the playoffs before, and they've lost games, and the manner in which they've lost games, the comeback against the Chargers, but there was other games where they've lost in a compelling nature. The fact that they put it up to the Bills, I think it shows that this team could easily have won that game, gone on to the AFC divisional round. I think there's a lot to be said for them coming back next year even stronger, despite not having the players that the people make it.
It's all a matter of perspective as well, right? Because people nodding their heads sagely at the Denver Broncos saying, they weren't too far off. They did right not to make too many changes and to run it back with essentially the same.
And the Jags went into Mile High and beat the Broncos last year. And what's to say they wouldn't have done that again if they had him in roles reversed in terms of they had to come out the right side of that Bills game. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting season for them.
It sure is. It's going to be an exciting season for us too, and we hope for all of you as well. We have one more division to preview in the off season. That's going to be the NFC South. We're going to take that up next week. In the meantime, if you've missed any of our other 6 divisional previews, you can get them wherever you get your podcasts. And please do remember to like and subscribe wherever you pick up that content on the Irish NFL Show.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.